Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Unparalleled Universe for another action figure review, and today we're taking a look at the brand new Marvel Select Vision. And I'm excited about this figure because I'm a huge sucker for Vision. He was one of my favorite Avengers growing up. In fact, he might have been my #1 Avenger when I was a kid. It was either him or Hawkeye. I know I loved both of those characters, and it's crazy to see how far they've come, you know? But I'm excited about this figure, even though I could see it through the window, and there are some obvious setbacks, especially in the articulation department, but I do think it's a good looking figure, so I'm looking forward to talking about it. So let's go ahead and get right into it, starting off with the packaging. We do have the standard Marvel Select packaging. You are able to see Vision through the window along with all the accessories that he comes with, and he does come with a good amount. He has some blast effects, an extra head, so that's awesome. And then we get some really nice looking artwork that has a bunch of classic comic book artwork of Vision back here behind the text and stuff. I think that looks good. And then on the side of the box, we get a look at the Vision, looking badass. I love that there. And then on the back, we get a look at the figure itself, and then some information about the character and some information about the figure. And that's about it for the packaging. It is your standard Marvel Select packaging. It's big and bulky, and thankfully they filled it up with accessories. It's not just Vision in there hanging out by himself in like a big abyss of empty plastic, you know. They threw some stuff in there with him, so he does look good. But enough about the box. Let's go ahead and get him out and take a look. Alrighty, so here we have the Vision right out of the box, and as you can see, this is a really great looking figure. They did an incredible job with the sculpting on this guy, and it does a very good job of capturing that classic comic book look for the Vision. So I do love the way he looks. Paintwork is okay. He did have some imperfections. He had one pretty big imperfection in the underarm, but I was able to clean it up, so, you know, it is what it is. But aside from that, the paintwork does look nice. The cape is really well done too. I like the shape of it. I like that it has some detail back here. It doesn't look like a big chunk of cheap plastic. It doesn't really get in the way too much, and it looks nice, man. It's kind of like flowy, and it looks really dope in my opinion. So yeah, I love this figure because of the way he looks, but I will say the articulation is very bad. He's got single jointed elbows and single jointed knees. Neither one of them get very good range, and there's not a whole lot you could do in the posability department with this guy. But I will say, I do think that you can get him into most poses that you would want for the Vision. You can get him into some really dope like floating around poses, and you could get him into like very basic fighting poses. He doesn't need to look all that dynamic because he is an android. He's not the most dynamic character, so you could kind of get away with things. And we'll talk more about the articulation when we get there, but these are kind of my first impressions about the guy. I took him out and I was like, man, this looks incredible. And then I started to play around with it, but I was like, man, you can't really do too much with it. But the look, the sculpt and all that is definitely carrying the load here. And it kind of makes me like not really care about the articulation, which is kind of uncharacteristic for me because I like a good balance of articulation and sculpt. And with this guy, it's really the sculpt that's making me love it because, again, I'm a big fan of the Vision, so I'm happy to have new figures of him. And I just think this guy does such a good job of capturing that classic look for the Vision. So I'm kind of like able to overlook some of the shortcomings and just enjoy what we have going on here. So yeah, I really love the way the figure looks. I'm pretty impressed with that right out of the box. But let's go ahead and get in close and take a look at the details on him because I do think they did a great job with the sculpting work. And starting from the top with the head, I really think they did an incredible job on this head sculpt. I absolutely love it. They killed it, man. Look at that. Got some nice color on the face, a little bit of a wash to give it kind of different layers of colors. That looks amazing. And it's just perfectly sculpted. I love the facial expression too. It's very stoic and very cold, fitting for the Vision, you know. There are some areas that the paint could have been done a little better. Like on this side of the face, you could see where the green meets the skin. It's not as crisp as it could have been. On this side, it was pretty good, so that's cool. But over here, from a distance, you don't really notice it, but when you get in close with the camera, you could see all these imperfections, and yeah, it could have been cleaner there. But aside from that, this head sculpt is absolutely perfect. Look at that, man. I freaking love it. So good. And then moving down into the body, starting off with the cape here, you could see that this piece has like a little rope type of look, but it is the same color of the cape, so it kind of blends in all together. But the cape is really nice. I think they did a great job sculpting it. I like that they have like different colors in there and stuff. Nice variation. I like the shape. And yeah, I think the cape is really nice. The body itself is really good too. Not a whole lot going on really, but I think they did a good job with the details and stuff. They did everything they needed to. It's not just like a smooth body. It kind of looks like a person wearing a suit. There's little details in there to make it look like that. The diamond on the chest looks okay, but I do think it could have been painted a little cleaner. But for the most part, I think it's okay. And then on the lower torso, we do have some lines sculpted in there. And then moving down to the lower part of the body, there's really not a whole lot going on. We've got the yellow boots. You know, the boots I think could have been painted a little better too, a little crisper. There's just some areas that are a little fuzzier than I would like. But I think for the most part, it does look really good. The star of the show is definitely the head sculpt. I think they absolutely killed it right there. And then as for accessories, we do get some pretty cool stuff, but it looks like they actually left out some of the things that they had planned on releasing with this figure, because I did see a promo image that showed Vision with a bunch of extra sets of hands and energy effects for both sides and different types of energy effects and all kinds of cool stuff. And we got some of that, but not all of it. All we got here is a pair of fists, and then we have a energy blast effect for the left side, which is pretty cool. And then a flat hand on the right side, which, you know, it's a little boring, but at least it's something different. I like the energy effect a lot. It would have been cool to be able to have this on both sides like those original images had shown. I don't know if they were official images though. They might have been something leaked or whatever. But yeah, this energy effect is pretty cool. And this piece that is around the wrist can actually be removed and you could put it on the other side. It just kind of slips onto the wrist. So you have some options there. But yeah, it would have been cool if he came with all of those hands that we saw in that image, because they had some great stuff in there. I'm glad that some of it made it out, but it would have been really cool to have all that stuff. But thankfully, he does come with two different head sculpts, and this is the first one. It's the one that we've already looked at. Like I said before, I think this head sculpt is absolutely perfect. And the alternate head sculpt is extremely well done too. As you could see, this time around, Vision has a much more angry facial expression. So yeah, they did a good job with that. And what's cool about this one is that you can actually remove this thing from his forehead, but it's really hard to do because it's so small. Let's see if I can do it. I kind of don't think I'm going to be able to on camera. You have to kind of inherit the spirit of Thanos and rip that out of his head. Oh, there we go. Boom. So you could take that out of his forehead, and then you can insert this cool blast effect. So that's very cool. Yeah, check that out. That's a really cool accessory. Kind of different. And I like that we have the option to have just the angry head, or you could insert the laser in there. And the laser is very well sculpted, and it fits in there with no problem at all. You don't have to worry about it falling out or anything like that. But when you take this out of his head, it's very, very small, so you can risk losing that, so be careful. But yeah, this is a very cool accessory. And I think this second head sculpt is really well done. So they killed it with both head sculpts, honestly. Alrighty, so now for some size comparisons. Here we have the Vision along with his father, the Marvel Select Ultron and the Marvel Legends Ultron. He looks really nice next to the Marvel Select one. He looks pretty cool next to the Legends one, even though he is a little bit taller. I think you can maybe make something work here. And then here we have him alongside the Marvel Legends Scarlet Witch and the Marvel Legends Vision. And I do think that the Marvel Select Vision looks pretty good next to Scarlet Witch. I think that's a character that he is okay being taller than. So you could definitely make that work in my opinion. And then next up we have him alongside the Marvel Select Thanos and the Marvel Select Taskmaster. And I think he scales pretty well with the character the size of Taskmaster. I think that looks pretty good. And then next up we have him alongside the Marvel Legends 20th anniversary of Marvel Legends Captain America and the Mafex comic book Spider-Man. And, you know, he looks pretty good next to Captain America. He is on the tall side, but I do feel like it's pretty fudgeable, you know. If you want to set him up with your Marvel Legends Avengers, I think you could make it work, even though he is a little on the tall side. And then, of course, here we have Vision alongside the Marvel Legends Pizza Spider-Man and Marvel Legends Bucky Cap. And then next up, we have him alongside the Mafex Classic Iron Man and the Marvel Legends AI Iron Man. And then for the final size comparison, here we have the Vision alongside the Marvel Legends Wonder Man and the Marvel Legends 80th Anniversary Thor with an awesome custom soft goods cape from Harker Customs. And speaking of Wonder Man, companies really need to show him some more love. I would really like to see some more action figures of Simon Williams. I'm sure as he becomes more well known, through his appearances in like, you know, live action stuff or whatever. I'm sure they'll get around to doing more figures, but he's an awesome character and I love the look. I know that Hasbro is going to come out with the Safari Jacket Wonder Man, and I think that's awesome, but I would like to see someone take a stab at this look again. This is a decent figure, but I would like to see it on a bigger body, or I think it'd be kind of cool to see Marvel Select do it. You know, they did a good job with Vision, so I think they could do a pretty good job with Simon Williams. And then as far as the articulation goes, as I said before, there's really not a whole lot going on here. It is very basic and does feel outdated. The articulation on the Vision feels like something that we would have seen on a figure from like 2010 or like that era, you know. Not horrible, but just very basic and limited. But you could still get him into some pretty decent poses, and you could get him into poses that work well for the character. So if you're willing to overlook some of the shortcomings, you could definitely have a little bit of fun posing this guy around. But he's not going to get into the most dynamic poses, but he's also not the most dynamic character. So I will say that the articulation kind of works for the character, but at the same time, it still does kind of suck in the articulation department. So it is what it is. But let's go ahead and take a look starting off at the head. He does have a ball peg at the head and the neck area, so you could get him to look side to side, which is nice. And then he could look up to about right there, and then the upward movement is kind of restricted by the collar. So to get him into flight poses, you're going to have to get some reinforcements from the torso. But you could definitely get him into some cool flight poses. So that's nice. And then he could look down to about right there, which is really good. And then you could get his head to tilt a really nice amount, which works very well for Vision because he's always like curious, kind of baffled and bewildered by humanity's nonsense, you know? Always like, you could give him like those curious type of head tilts, so that's cool. And then for the torso, he does have a nice diaphragm cut, which I was kind of surprised by because a lot of Marvel Select figures will have a diaphragm cut, but it won't get too much movement. You always have to modify them. But for Vision, I don't think that's necessary because you could kind of get some good movement out of it. So it does move side to side a really good amount, which is crazy. Look at that. And that's very helpful for those like flying around poses, you know. So that's nice. And then you can also swivel on the diaphragm cut. It can go forward to about right there, which is pretty good. Not a crazy amount, but decent. I could live with that. And then it goes back a really good amount, but then the cape kind of gets in the way. And then he does have a waist swivel, but it's really tight, so you could just get most of your swivel from the diaphragm. But yeah, I think the torso is actually pretty nice on him. So you could do some cool flight type of poses with that diaphragm cut there. And the cape works really well with it too. Check that out. And then as for the arms, he does have ball joints at the shoulders. You can get it to go all the way around, but it's very, very tight. And then the cape does kind of get in the way. But his arms do go all the way around. You could bring his arms up to the side to about right there, which is nice considering the cape is kind of draped over the shoulder a little bit. You could still get his arms up a really good amount. So that's good. And then he does have an upper bicep swivel, and then he does have these weak ass elbows. So he has a single joint at the elbow that only goes to about right there, which that sucks, man. That's not even 90. So that's very, very weak. And then there's also like a swivel right here. And then at the hand, he has a swivel and a hinge. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of these elbows, and I don't even think they look very good. The cut here is kind of ugly. Like you've got this piece that sticks out too much, and it doesn't get a lot of range. So yeah, these arms, I'm not very happy with the arms. I think they don't look good and they don't function very well. So they could have done better with the arms. And then for the legs, you could get his leg up to about right there, which isn't too bad. You could get it to go back to about right there. And then check this out. He can do the splits like nothing, easy. So I guess that's cool. Unnecessary for the Vision, but it is what it is. And then he does have upper thigh swivel, which is nice. And then at the knee, he has a joint that is very similar to the elbow joint. It's just a single hinge and then a swivel. So yeah, it only goes to about right there, which, you know, it's about 90, I guess. I don't really mind it too much on the legs. It still sucks, but it's not as annoying as it is on the arms, to be honest. And then at the foot, we have a hinge, and then rocking ankles. So yeah, not a whole lot going on in the articulation department. I really like what they did with the neck and the diaphragm, but the arms and legs are pretty whack. Let's see if we can get him into like a decent punching pose. You could kind of get his arms in front of him like an okay amount, but yeah, you can't really do too much with them. The diaphragm really saves the day here. Yeah, look at that. That's all right, I guess. Yeah, that's not too bad. Again, you could kind of get away with like stiff poses with him because he's an android, you know? He's not the most dynamic character. He's not Spider-Man or Daredevil or something. Still, I don't want to make excuses for bad articulation. I'm just kind of trying to look at the bright side, or try to be optimistic about it, you know, because I love the way the figure looks. So I'm trying to find the positives in the posability. There's just not a whole lot going there. Alrighty, so overall, at the end of the day, when the smoke clears, the dust settles, and it's all said and done, look, I know this figure is far from perfect. He's got a lot of things wrong with him. The articulation is pretty damn bad. Some of the joints don't look as good as they should. And there's just a lot of things they could have done better. The figure feels very outdated. It seems like it's something that could have come out like 15 years ago. But still, with all that in mind, to be completely honest with you, I really, really like this figure. I love the way that he looks. I'm a big fan of Vision, especially the old school classic Avengers version of Vision. It's one of my favorite characters, and I think this figure represents that look from the comic perfectly. Yeah, he's not the funnest figure to pose around and play with because of the limited articulation, but he looks amazing. He looks awesome on the shelf. He's going to look great alongside the other Avengers. I do think that he fits in pretty well with Marvel Legends. Although he is a little on the tall side, I think it's fudgeable, and he looks awesome. So I'm just very happy with the way they designed the figure and the shelf presence, and mostly just the way he looks, you know. The accessories are awesome too. I like that he came with 2 different heads. I like the different lasers and extra hands and all that kind of stuff. So as far as like a well-sculpted figure with a good amount of accessories, I think this figure definitely does the job. The articulation, you know, it's not very good at all, but you could still get some good poses out of it, especially poses that are accurate to the character, even if they're not like the most dynamic or hand-friendly type of poses, you know? Like, it's not very fun to sit there and pose this figure, but you can make something work if you kind of keep in mind what this character actually does, you know? So the articulation is serviceable, but it's far from good. But yeah, man, I just like this figure. You know, I'm sure a lot of people are gonna disagree with me, but I don't know, man. I think he's awesome, even with its flaws. I think that he's a really cool figure. I'm very happy to have it. I kind of want to get an extra one and see if I could find like some arms to put on him, but then I'd have to paint them and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if I'm willing to do that much, but I think there's some potential here. You could probably very easily turn this into a really articulated Vision figure with just some modifications, you know, switch out the arms and maybe like sand or like cut away a little bit on the inside of the shoulders to free up the ball joints. And, you know, you'd be in business at that point. But as it is right now, you know, the articulation is the one downside with this figure. And I'm sure that's something that's going to keep a lot of people from buying this figure. But if you want a really classic looking Vision that's going to look amazing next to your other Avenger figures, you know, this guy might be worth checking out. I'm completely happy with it. Obviously, I wish the articulation was better, but as it is, I'm happy that I bought this figure, and I'm really excited to have a Vision figure that looks this good. And with that, I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Also, be sure to hit the bell notification so you know every time that I go live. If you're not aware, I do go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m., every Friday at 7 p.m., and every Sunday at 10 a.m., where we talk about comics. Breakfast bars coming to you, just discussing random trade paperbacks and other comic book related topics. So come through every Tuesday and Friday to talk about toys and to get crazy. And then every Sunday, come through and talk about comics. Thank you very much. Peace.